present screencast explores plurilingual approaches in the L3 classroom. The learning context of interest is the one in which a third non-native language is acquired, L3, in a situation in which the person has already knowledge of one or more L2s in addition to one or more L1s. This learning context is approached from a plurilingual education point of view, considering both its aspects, education for plurilingualism, as well as education through plurilingualism. Our focus is twofold. It lies on the plurilingual approaches in the European framework, and we therefore take a closer look first at the recently developed companion volume of the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and second, at the work done by the European Centre for Modern Languages of the Council of Europe. Our focus also lies on the L3 context, that is the person learning a third language, and the actual teaching of this third language. As far as the teaching is concerned, we are interested in the teaching methodology, the objectives, and the possible transfer areas. Let us first discuss some of the key concepts of plurilingual approaches, which form a useful theoretical framework on a European basis. In the framework, it is distinguished between multilingualism, which is the coexistence of different languages at the social or individual level, and plurilingualism, which is the dynamic and developing linguistic repertoire of an individual user, of an individual learner. Plurilingualism is presented in the framework as an uneven and changing competence in which the users, the learners' resources in one language or in one variety may be very different in nature to those in another. The fundamental point is that plurilinguals have a single interrelated repertoire that they combine with their general competencies and various strategies in order to accomplish tasks. Having briefly defined what plurilingualism is and what it involves, it is necessary to consider why it matters. What are the reasons for promoting it? Pre-existing sociolinguistic and pragmatic competencies are exploited and further developed. A better perception of what is general and what is specific concerning the linguistic organization of different languages is achieved, a form of metalinguistic, interlinguistic, or so to speak, hyperlinguistic awareness. Knowledge is refined of how to learn and the capacity to enter into relations with others and new situations. Subsequent learning in the linguistic and cultural areas may be accelerated. If we had to single out the main objective of plurilingual approaches, this would have to be plurilingual competence. But what does such a competence entail? Plurilingual competence involves the ability to call flexibly upon the aforementioned interrelated, uneven plurilinguistic repertoire in order to switch from one language or one dialect or one variety to another, express oneself in one language and understand a person speaking another, call upon the knowledge of a number of languages or dialects or varieties to make sense of a text, recognize words from a common international store in a new guise, mediate between individuals with no common language or no common dialect or no common variety, even with only a slight knowledge of it, bring the whole of one's linguistic equipment into play, experimenting with alternative forms of expressions, exploit paralinguistics such as mime, gesture, facial expression, and so on. Having outlined the theoretical framework within which plurilinguals make sense and can work, we will now see specific ways in which those are supported and implemented in Europe. the European Centre for Modern Languages, ECML, has been working towards this goal for some time now, and here a series of its most important relevant projects will be reviewed. The first project is called ECML Publications for Plurilingual and Intercultural Education and Use. Aim of this project is the mediation of a selection of ECML publications for plurilingual and intercultural education, as well as a better recognition, a deeper understanding, and a wider use of such publications. The second project of interest is called Learning Through Languages, Promoting Inclusive, Plurilingual, and Intercultural Education. In this project, the scope is widened to move beyond the foreign language classroom to include all linguistic abilities and the needs of all groups of learners. Languages represent the principal medium through which learning is achieved, so the program addresses not just the foreign language classroom, but the teaching and learning of the language of schooling, of other languages present in the educational environment, and of the languages used in subject teaching, formal learning. A third program, which is interesting, is the framework of reference for pluralistic approaches to languages and cultures. This is a detailed taxonomy of aspects of plurilingual and pluricultural competence relevant to pluralistic approaches. The FREPA framework represents an essential complement to existing instruments, especially the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages or the European language portfolios, which still, more often than not, deal with linguistic abilities by juxtaposing contrasting languages, in spite of the principle we have suggested previously concerning plurilingual and pluricultural competence. Moving on is the Guide for the Development and Implementation of Curricula for Plurilingual and Intercultural Education. It outlines the implications of plurilingualism and intercultural competence for curriculum design in relation to the framework. It is intended to facilitate improved implementation of the values and principles of plurilingual and intercultural education in the teaching of all languages, foreign, regional or minority, classical, and languages of schooling. The program of Pluriliteracy's approach to teaching for learning focuses on pluriliteracy's approaches, which build on CLIL approaches to help learners become better meaning makers who can draw on content knowledge to communicate successfully across languages, disciplines, and cultures. So, the wider theoretical framework of plurilingual approaches has been outlined, and examples of efforts to promote them on a European scale have been identified. It is now of interest to focus down on the L3 classroom in order to comprehend it and see how such approaches can be put to practice. Let us begin by pointing out that there are qualitative and quantitative differences between the learning of a first foreign language, L2, and the learning of a second foreign language, L3. The investigation of such differences resulted in various models for language learning: the dynamic model of multilingualism, the role-function model, the ecological model, the foreign language acquisition model. Perhaps the most important reason why there are such differences is the L3 learner. The L3 learner is no longer a blank page as far as foreign language learning is concerned. He or she has already gained experience in learning a foreign language, for example, the feeling of not being able to understand everything, observation of language mixtures which can occur, acceptance of the fact that the new words have to be learned, knowledge of how to learn, and recognition of own learning type. The L3 learner realizes that in learning, understanding, and using the new language, one can have active recourse to the foreign language already learned. He or she develops foreign language learning strategies in both L2 and L3. Such differences inevitably result in differences in teaching. So when it comes to L3 teaching, they are nowadays used and they are regarded as an important advantage. In L3 teaching, learners' previous cognitive and emotional experiences are included. If the languages to be learned are very similar, we have closely related languages as far as linguistic aspects are concerned. If they are rather different, learning strategies and cognitive factors come into play. The learning potential established during the learning of other languages is activated, and it is possible for L3 teaching to begin at a higher level, to progress faster, and to have content which is more demanding. Very often, it is integrated language didactics we talk about. This is also known as total language teaching curriculum. In this case, plurilingualism of individuals is taken seriously. The teaching and learning is directed towards helping learners to establish links between the limited number of languages taught within the school curriculum. The first language, or the language of education, is used as a springboard to facilitate the learning of the first foreign language. Subsequently, these two languages are used as the basis for learning a second foreign language, and there is mutual support between all languages. So, what are the meaningful objectives to be aimed at in the L3 classroom? First, development of sensitivity to languages, dialects, registers, rhymes, visualizations, playful use of language, language portraits. Development of sensitivity to languages, comparisons of what languages look like and sound like across the world, internationalisms, speech acts, formulaic phrases, developing language learning awareness. Encourage language awareness through comparison of the languages, learning how to learn languages, awareness of learning behavior, discussions concerning the improvement of learning. Aspects of language use, pragmatic, functional, communicative aspects. Sensitize learners to languages, sensitize learning to otherness, understanding self and other, intercultural objectives. Bringing together all the concepts, developments, and knowledge in relation to the plurilingual approaches so far. In our case, the case of the L3 classroom, there is one key assumption to keep in mind. There is one fundamental human language ability that is developed and differentiated through the learning of foreign languages. Therefore, the question of the interference of language system does not initially play the key role in didactic considerations. More important, it is the aspect of transfer. Looking closer at the possible transfer areas in the L3 classroom, two stand out. Increasing language possession by means of transfer bridges, recognition transfer, and making the tacit explicit, and increasing language learning awareness through discussions of language learning processes and language learning experience, and by linking up new with the existing and expanding them. And here strategies for learning and communication play the key role. To conclude, when it comes to plurilingual approaches in the L3 classroom, we need to focus on the learner because of the language needs, because of his or her language profile, because of the learner's previous language knowledge, and because of the language learning experience itself. In this screencast, we discussed plurilingual approaches in the European context in relation to L3 teaching, the L3 learner, and the L3 classroom. If you want to learn more about teacher education about multilingualism, watch the next screencast.